Three used cars, one petrol, one hybrid, one EV, all the same year, all about the same mileage. They couldn't possibly be all about the same price, could they?
Oddio, non è possibile!
Because surely new EVs and used EVs are way more expensive than petrol cars, right? That's what's been bashed into us over the last couple of years. They're unaffordable, they're way out of reach. They won't gain real traction until they get on parity with petrol cars. We've heard it all, and now we're starting to see it all as well. Finally, new EVs like the MG4 are starting to reach price parity with similar sized petrol cars like the Toyota Corolla.
This last few weeks, people like MG are now selling a new electric car for a lower price in some states than their petrol one. That's the cross point I've been looking forward to. The point at which an EV has no price penalty compared to an internal combustion.
What about used EVs? Surely they're not getting affordable as well.
Non è possibile!
So we set out to find three cars from 2019. You remember 2019, way back before COVID when new car prices were normal. Now they're almost 5 years old, they've done about 100,000 Ks and they're still reliable, really good value. And we chose them all from one single used car platform in Australia to give ourselves a level playing field, just so it seems that we're not cherry picking favourites here.
That's not going to work.
What was that?
For goodness sake, that's not going to work.
And she's got a point here. Mrs. Amazing doesn't think we should be comparing cars from other marketplaces. She thinks we should be using our own dedicated used EV marketplace, AmazingEV. But I wanted to throw in some petrol and hybrid cars into the mix just to compare value at this stage. So if it backfires, this one's on me. So the three contestants are a Toyota hybrid Camry, Mercedes C-Class Petrol, and a newly launched Tesla Model 3 fully electric, all from 2019, just 5 short years ago. Seems so long ago now. We're also happy before COVID 5 years ago, but then at the end of that year, black summer bushfires started to rage. Trump was still president, and all these three cars were sold new for the very first time. Back then, the Tesla Model 3 had only just been launched in Australia, was US built, and it took off overnight. Really reinvigorated the sedan market here in Australia, which was on the wane anyway. SUVs were on the way up, and of course utes and trucks were making their mark, but sedans were on the way down. The Tesla Model 3 changed all that and introduced a whole new buyer. The sedan market, which up until then had been dominated by the Camry, which, sure, going to government fleet taxis allowed them to get over 16,000 sales that year. And would you believe that year in 2019, the C-Class Mercedes was the second highest selling mid-sized sedan. Try saying that. Does this sound familiar? A quote from Tony Webber, the chief executive of the FCAI, the peak body for new car sales here in Australia, who described 2019 as a tough year with 1.1 million sales, down from the previous year. 2019 reflects a tough year for Australian economy, with the challenges including tightening of lending, movements in exchange rates, slow wage growth, and of course the extreme environmental factors our country is experiencing. Sound any familiar? Sound any different from 2024? What surprises me sometimes is the risk Tesla took introducing a sedan into the Australian market and other markets which were clearly on a wave of SUVs, and sedans were waning, but the risk that they took has paid off in spades. People wanted an EV, they wanted a technologically advanced car, and Tesla gave them one. It went on to be a huge seller, of course, and now it's one of the most popular used cars, if not used EVs, on the market here. So grab yourself a coffee and let's kick this off having a look at the used car off from 2019. One petrol, one hybrid, one EV. All about the same age, 2019, all around about the same Ks, about 100,000 Ks, all with private owners. And the contestants are one Toyota hybrid SL Camry, one Mercedes-Benz C-Class 200, and one Tesla Model 3 standard range. They're all from one major used car market in Australia. No naming names. This is the price that they've advertised. We don't know what they sold for, and we don't know if it's good value or not. We're just taking it as the advertised price, not including any transaction costs in the particular states that they are for sale. Our first car is from Victoria, the 2019 Toyota Camry, and it's an advertised price of $30,990. It's a 2.5 litre hybrid, not like a plug-in hybrid today, just a bit of on-board charging to boost power and fuel really. This was early EV tech, had the nickel metal hydride battery, not doing too much really. Plus some strange CVT, constantly variable transmission. Sounds weird, but we're just worried about maintenance costs down the track. Inside it looks like any other car from 10 years ago, all pretty standard fare. Starting to look a bit dated now in my opinion. So perhaps the only reason for anyone to spend 30-odd thousand K on a Toyota is the badge on the front. I mean, it's got some complicated hybrid tech. Toyotas are supposed to be reliable, right? But look, it doesn't guarantee it for the next 50,000 Ks as far as I'm concerned. We don't know used ICE prices that well from 2019, but we can look this one up, and on the road back in 2019, it would have been about 35,000 on the road. So used car number one hasn't got a lot going for it as far as I'm concerned, but it's probably going to win the depreciation prize from 35 on the road down to 30 odd, 31, 5 years later. That probably takes out the depreciation award so far. Before we go on to contestant number two, let's have a look at what I think makes a good used car and what I consider the sweet spot in used car pricing. For a number of reasons, a good used car means that a buyer doesn't buy a new car, right? If they could afford a new car, they would, and with payments just a little bit more or stretching themselves just a little bit more, people would naturally buy a new car. So a used car has to be good value, it has to be affordable, has to be reliable, and it has to give the new owner the feeling that they're going to get plenty of reliability and long-term driving out for them and their family. The sweet spot in terms of pricing for me is between 25 and 35,000. Above that price, in either payments per month or per week or cash up front, they'll probably stretch themselves and try and buy a new car at $50,000, $55,000, $60,000 for most people. So for a used car to be good value, it's got to fit into that $25,000 to $35,000 range. Under that, you may not be getting the reliability, or the Ks just might be too high, or there could be some damage to it. But in that range, 25 to 35, that's the sweet spot we think for used car pricing. Once they get between 25 and 35,000 for a quality 2 or 3 year old used EV, that's when the real game starts. When EVs start to enter the sweet spot, you're going to get a bigger selection, and that's the competition really starts to kick off. Contestant number two is a C-Class Mercedes-Benz, again from 2019, and surprisingly it was the second biggest seller in the medium car class that year, with just over 6,000 sales, and we found one here for $35,000. It's a downsized 2-litre turbocharged engine. This was the baseline C-Class without options in 2019, with $63,400 before on-road costs. So let's call it $65 on the road. That was before Mercedes get you with the endless options, right? So you'd have to be thinking that's holding its value pretty well 5 years later. Or it's got the brand, it's got the luxury, it's advertised for $35,000, but is it? It's almost half the price of what it was brand new, right? How's that for depreciation? 35 is a good deal, sure, but still a lot of money, even for Mercedes, which you might argue is a much better brand, all right, than Toyota. But coming up to 90,000 Ks, and you have to start to think to yourself, the expensive cost of Mercedes parts and servicing going on, you might be up for it a bit in terms of maintenance for the next few years for this car. Automatic gearbox, turbocharged engine, you might be starting to wonder if something goes wrong, is that going to end up really expensive? Surely you'd be thinking contestant number three from Queensland, a Tesla Model 3 standard range with about 87,000 Ks on the clock from 2019 would be way more expensive than the other two. After all, EVs are out of reach. They're expensive, aren't they? Even used EVs. Well, have a look at this. We found a 2019 Tesla Model 3 long range for $32,500. And by the time you get to look at it online, you won't see it because it's already been sold. So they are in demand. And as you can see, this one is in beautiful condition. And I think what we found with most Teslas and most EVs in general is that the people who've owned them, early adopters, first owners of EVs, who've taken a risk on buying an EV, have been absolutely fastidious in the way they've looked after them and owned these cars. They've looked after them, and most of them are in perfect condition, as you can see by the photos. This one was a US built, you can tell by the silver trim instead of the black. So that ironed out any of the problems that they had by the time they came to Australia. But it's still got the full battery warranty until 2027, so at least 2.5 years more of battery warranty, or until you get to 160, so 60,000 Ks of driving. But all the standard features that you get, all the over-the-air updates, everything that you can get on the latest model Tesla. It It was for sale and sold in Queensland, which is starting to prove to me already there are affordable used EVs out there comparable with petrol and hybrid cars on the market right now here in Australia. So there we have 3 used cars in Australia, all in about the sweet spot between 25 and 35 grand, where they're starting to make real sense. And one of those was a Tesla Model 3, just showing that there's some real value right in the middle of that sweet spot for anyone out there looking for great value, great reliability, and plenty of life in a used EV. So as far as we're concerned, there's only one winner in this competition, and that's you, the customer. You're the ones that are going to benefit from cheaper EVs, more affordable EVs, more reliable EVs, and lower running costs, both for maintenance and petrol or lack of petrol in future. Let us know what you think in the comments below. I'm Roscoe, and this is Amazing EV. Guys, thanks for watching. This one was a lot of fun to make. We had a lot of fun scrolling around the internet, looking at different car markets and comparing the value of used cars and just catching up with the market in general. Some of the results were a bit surprising to us too, but we had, as I said, we had a lot of fun doing it, and we weren't really trying to find a winner here. And we are the first to concede that the used EV market hasn't quite caught up to the used petrol market just yet. Sure, there's some great value cars starting to come onto the market, and the one we showed you, the Tesla Model 3, is one of many that are coming into the lower 30s mark, but it's not quite there yet. You can get some Leafs, you can get some Konas, you can get some cheaper Teslas, but sure, the big range is not there yet. But with new EV sales set to top 100,000 this year and 100,000 last year, there's obviously over 250,000 EVs on the road now. So they're going to get cheaper, and we're going to start to see the floodgates open up real soon in the used EV market. So here at Amazing EV, we can't wait